All right, welcome to another episode of Ben's podcast. This week we're doing a video podcast, and today I worked on setting up a SoundCloud account and connecting that to iTunes so that we can upload our podcasts to SoundCloud and then automatically have that show up in the iTunes store today. But here's a twist. I'm not alone today. I'm joined by my wife, Missy. Thanks, Missy, for sitting in with me.
Thank you for having me, Ben.
Very formal. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Always be professional, even
Yes.
when you're on a podcast for your husband's school project.
Always be professional.
That's right. So, we're going to go through and just have some images and kind of explain how to connect, how to set up SoundCloud and connect it to iTunes. And Missy's going to kind of stand in for the audience as someone that self-described knows nothing about podcasting or
technology in general.
in any way. So she's going to be able to ask questions and make sure that everything is clear and easy to understand. All right, here we go. So first we're going to talk about setting up a SoundCloud account. You can visit soundcloud.com, click on the big orange Create an Account button in there. So you'll go ahead and put in a new email address. You also can use a Google or a Facebook account, but I would recommend using an email address since you're going to be creating content. You're going to have to actually get messages from SoundCloud and provide an email address when you connect to iTunes. So go ahead and do that. When you're choosing your display name, put your actual name of your podcast there. That's what's going to show up. So don't put your real name, just put your podcast name there. Once you actually get into SoundCloud, it's really easy to upload. You can see the upload button there. You would just click that. And from there, you're able to upload your sounds, they call them, but in your case, that's going to be a podcast. But equally important is to kind of set some of your profile information so that you can kind of establish a presence for your podcast. And then when you put that over to iTunes, that's going to pull some of that information automatically. So you're going to click on your podcast name that you filled out and then choose profile.
What kind of things would you put in your profile?
We're going to go over that right now, Missy. So. And it's a little weird, the layout of where some of the options are, so I've kind of tried to go through that here. So the first one is your background image, basically, your profile image. So you go ahead and click on that, and you'll be able to upload an image. And I used Bill Esquire there. And then you also can set up a background image, like a banner image to go on. So it's very much like any kind of social media. You want to make sure that you use a large image here. This is what happens if you use an image that's too small. And another thing that I would suggest to do is to find image that's free to use under Creative Commons. You can find that in like Wikipedia, Wikimedia Commons, or on Flickr. And then you just make sure that you attribute that image in your profile information. Okay, so then let me go back one step. So you can't see it here, but if you hover your mouse over the background image part of the screen, you will see a little pencil pop up when you mouse over, and that's what you click to edit your profile information. So this is the important part. So you want to put in, if you accidentally put in your name when you create your account, you can change that here to reflect your actual podcast name. That's what I ended up doing after I had first set up SoundCloud. And then you can also customize the URL. So by default, you're just going to get some kind of random like user dash set of numbers. You don't really want that. You want something that's easy to remember. So for mine, I called the podcast the Grad School TechCast, and I made the URL /GS Tech, I think. So something short, easy to kind of remember, and you can even include that in your podcast introductions and wrap up.
Would you recommend tailoring your URL to make it similar to your display name and your podcast name?
Yes, I think that's a great point, Missy. You should probably make everything sort of consistent. If you're trying to get people to actually listen to your podcast, you have to at least consider somewhat branding, just from the perspective of at least making things easy to remember and kind of associate those different things in people's minds. So then I didn't bother filling out any of the other like profile info except for the bio. You want to put something there. When you put your podcast over to iTunes, the bio will go over as the description of the show.
Is there a character count there? or character limit?
I don't know. I didn't run into it, but it does say the shorter the better. So that's probably a clue that if you try to just put in your life's story, you might run into a character count. So, and really, no one's reading more than a couple sentences on these things. They're looking on their phones. So not a good place for a huge life story type of situation. And then at the bottom, you can add links. So if you have a website, a blog, social media that you want to point people to, that's a great spot to add those. Next, you're going to want to look at your settings for your actual SoundCloud account. So this isn't your profile, this is your settings in the SoundCloud account.
Can you get there from the last page you were on in your profile?
So you'll want to go up to the top menu there. I got to the profile by clicking on the pencil icon in my picture, my background picture. The settings, you're going to want to go up to that ... symbol that's in the top navigation bar. Click on that and then choose settings. So that option is always there on any page that you're on. And these are the settings that are going to be really important for the process of putting your podcast over to iTunes. So first off, I didn't draw an arrow there, but I'm on the Content tab under Settings. That's where you'll find these particular settings. You'll notice the first thing it displays is the RSS feed. That's going to be very important. So that's why I like using SoundCloud for this, is that we're able to create a syndication feed automatically. This actually be a huge pain to set up on your own. You basically need like a server, and it has to, like, some people set up a server and then like manage the actual XML files that go along with this. Like back in the day when people were first starting to podcasting, it's really technical and time consuming. So that's why I like SoundCloud, is that it really takes care of this part for you.
Is that link generated from SoundCloud, or did you put that link in there?
Nope, this is automatic. So you have to then utilize the RSS feed that's created automatically with your SoundCloud profile.
I see.
Yes. So the mandatory things have the star by them. You have to choose a category and a language. So technology and English is what I went with. And then you have to choose upload defaults. So if you check the box that says include an RSS feed, every time you upload something to SoundCloud, that automatically gets included with that RSS syndication feed and will go over to iTunes automatically.
Does that RSS feed stay the same?
Mm-hmm.
Is that your unique RSS feed for your podcast?
It is, yep. So that's only for your stuff. And then the other upload defaults that I want to point out is the Creative Commons license. This is just a really cool thing you can do with your podcast, especially if you're a teacher and your audience is other teachers or students. That's going to provide a legal framework for other people to use and adapt your podcast. You can require that they just attribute you, which is a great way to go. And you also can stipulate that it has to be for non-commercial, like classroom use, so people aren't trying to like monetize your work or anything like that. But I think that's a really cool thing to do with your podcast. But we're on the portion now where we'll talk about connecting to iTunes. So all I did was I opened iTunes on my computer, the iTunes store. You go to the podcast section, and then there's a link that says submit your podcast. These days it just opens up an actual website. You just need to sign in with your iCloud account. So that's the same account that you use to like sign into your iPhone, App Store, things like that. And it's free to set up. So you'll just paste in that RSS feed that we got from our SoundCloud settings page into the field right there, and then click that validate button. So it's going to show you how all the fields that you have filled in SoundCloud map to your podcast showing up in iTunes. So the description, the category, all that type of thing. One thing that you may run into, one issue, is if you have already uploaded a podcast to SoundCloud, but if you uploaded the podcast before you then went to the content settings and checked the box to make it the default to include new uploads in your RSS feed, your previously uploaded podcast will not show up in that RSS feed. And you can get around that by going to your individual podcast tracks, clicking on the edit pencil button for those, going to the permissions tab, and then filling in this option to include in the RSS feed. And that will include your old podcasts in the RSS feed along with it. So once you are all validated and everything looks good, you click submit, and then you should get a message that your podcast was successfully submitted for review. I've heard this can take anywhere from a couple of days to a week or so before it'll actually show up in the podcast feed in people's iTunes and on their podcasts app, but you'll be well on your way.
It takes that long?
Yeah, Apple has a pretty non-transparent and apparently lengthy review process for a lot of things that get put onto their content platforms.
Is that true for all podcasts or smaller ones? Do larger ones that have a bigger following, do they bypass that or anything? Or
Yeah, I mean it's difficult to say. I don't know that we really know what the process is or if they're able to prioritize certain people over others. But the good news is once you're in, and then you can just keep adding your podcast to SoundCloud, and they'll automatically show up in iTunes almost immediately after they're uploaded to SoundCloud.
oh, so this is a first time thing?
Yeah, this is actually putting that RSS feed over to
Oh.
iTunes, and then now that I have
I
that
see.
feed set up, the podcast will be syndicated, they call it, from SoundCloud directly over to your iTunes. So this is like establishing your podcast in iTunes essentially, and then new episodes will automatically show up.
I thought they would take a week to upload it each time.
No, that would be terrible.
That would be awful.
Want to do that, yeah.
No, that would be awful. I see. Okay.
Okay, so that's sort of the process. Missy, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Ben. This was very informative.
All right, until next time, thanks for listening. And hey, I guess you can check out more episodes at soundcloud.com/gstech. See you later.
Bye.